Hello, Culture Matters podcast. We are back again with New Year's Eve, Lollapalooza 2024, the Jubilee. And we are surrounded by love and friends of the Culture Matters podcast. Before I introduce you to our guests, here's a quote just for this episode. Art is a kind of innate drive that seizes a human being and makes him its instrument. Carl G. Jung. Our guests today have been on the COD podcast. I almost said COD many times, creating value, adding value. We have the one and only Andrew Berman, whose first episode was episode 55. Clearly, he can't get rid of me. We have the one and only Mike Drop Calhoun, founder, board of advisors, episode 552, among other amazing episodes. What is value? What is advisor? What is a board? We have the one and only spotlight shining quite literally on our friend Vinnie Candelore, a leader within the one team media empire, episode 522, season 44, friend of the Culture Matters podcast. I got the pleasure of meeting, man, it seems like years, but it maybe spiritually, another lifetime ago. But, and I've learned so much. Actually, I've got um, quite literally art in my home today that expresses components of who I am because of this man. I can't wait for you guys, everyone listening, to get to know him better, and for Andrew Berman and Mike to get to know him, the impact he's had on my family's life. Pretty crazy. And shout out to one of my guardian angels, the real Brian Hess, for putting him in my life. Man, we were just talking about the creative process before you popped on. So, but first, Mike, meet Vinny, Vinny, Mike, Andrew, Vinny, Vinny, Andrew, culture, baby.
Fellas, great to meet you.
Any
Vinny,
pleasure to
excited
meet you.
to create this conversation here.
Oh
Excited
shit, did
too.
I hit record?
I think so.
I'm just kidding.
I was gonna
Uh,
say.
Andrew, can you share just quick thoughts before you pop off? Um, just that point you were making about procrastination, creativity, because I want to learn through Vinny's experience around the creative process and what he thinks on your where we
So
were talking before we popped in here.
yeah, so just my greatest creativity comes from when I'm under pressure and when I create you know pressure that often comes from procrastination and allows me, although some time during that procrastination, to really meditate over this thing, and then because I maybe am delivering something late, or feel like I'm taking too much time on it, then I need to actually make that, whatever that thing is, that project, whatever it is, better. And it causes me to, in some cases, over deliver, because of this situation. So we're talking about, like, like doesn't, like, an artist, in, obviously you do this for work, but there's, you are by core, by the nature, an artist. I'm assuming, assuming that I just happen to just like do a little bit of research at your father was a musician and an artist also.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is like an innate part of you. So is part of that process, like, does procrastination get in the way? Does it help? Like, where does procrastination fit in your world today and like years ago?
Mm. Uh, yeah, so procrastination's something that I feel like every creative either struggles with or um it's a part of your creation process. It's like it's kind of how you want to
Hmm.
look at it. So it could be as long or as little as you need, but at the end of the day, like, you know, I think that's one of the things me and Jay talked about the last time I was on this show was, what is art? Is this podcast art? Is your business art? And one of the things that I like firmly believe is that like your life is your art. So whether I'm working on a painting or working on a pair of shoes or a piece of content or working with a client, work is work, and it's deadlines are important. The weird gray area comes in when the work is based around something that has been connected to your form of art for your whole life before money was attached to it.
Hmm.
Because, rarely do your hobbies become the thing that pays your bills. And when that switch happens, there's this weird tension of, well, the reason that I got to this place where you want to pay me for this creative process is because there was nobody ever timing it before. And that's what made it great. And so now you're timing it. And so there's this weird tension. Is it procrastination or is it creative process? Like, and explaining that to your audience
Hmm.
is really difficult sometimes when there's money attached to it.
So, and I'm just curious. So you talk about like you had art, and art was just what you did for pleasure, and have found a way to create a business out of it. Um, so do you think like was that something that your dad was just hugely proud of, in terms that you were able to find a way, because I mean he might have been great at his job, using his hands, but at the end of the day, you're focused on creating art, as the business, as the main output, not as, functional art, but as in beautiful art that also has function.
Yeah, I mean, it was with my dad, it was like he never saw me be successful in this. So when he passed away, I was still working at a car dealership, selling um, Chevrolets. So
Oh,
uh,
wow.
there was never a phase where we got to celebrate like making it as an artist, or I was barely getting paid for anything I did as an artist when he passed away. So I definitely do feel like there's a hint of that in like my why, as far as why I'm so passionate um about this, is because I feel connected to him when I do make art. I feel like I'm living out something that he never had the opportunity to live out, because him being a musician, like he would gig, he would play some side shows here and there, but it was mostly cover music. It was mostly whatever the bar would want him to play in order to bring in the band. He was super technically skilled at playing the guitar, a great singer, but he didn't really have an opportunity to make his own music in this world. And that's something that I'm very blessed to be able to do and have, opportunities like Jay said. The paintings that are about to be in his house behind him on his podcast are my first real true original creations. Like they're like the first era of that. The one behind me is one of those as well. Um, and so yeah, it is like a funny. Sorry, I didn't expect to jump right on and jump right into me. I feel rude. I don't. I want to talk about you guys too, but this is great. I love this conversation.
Yeah, listen, I just I just the few minutes I had to kind of like understand who you are, I was like, oh my God, I was just so curious. And to know actually that you are going to make this podcast studio that Jay has, look, like something aesthetically pleasing. Jay, I get it. You got books in the back. It's very functional, but that
No, it
excites
looks like
me.
a South Park episode. What are you talking about?
Oh
And
my
to Mike's point earlier, like I was so busy preparing for this day. We have the paintings in the garage, in the basement, the garage, because they're not up. The goal was to have them up for this day, this Jubilee. We got 20 freaking podcasts, but I was up all night preparing. I was like, Jenna was the cutest thing. She went to the garage. She's like, we got to get these paintings up. I was like, I need to prepare.
I always wonder what is he even using that Post-it thing? Like he hangs it there so proudly. It's the only thing on the wall that people like, is there really any usage of it? No, he's not even using
There's
it.
another one on the floor. This is good. Yeah.
That's Jay's art, by the way.
Oh,
Before, yeah, but you said something that it made me deeply emotional, Vinny. You said I feel connected to him when I make art. There's no way I'd be able to get through this, but I just want to read 2 sentences, okay, of this letter. It stays in my desk. Uh, Dear Linda, Mommy Linda,
Mm.
I remember us. I recall the name Mommy Linda at a very early age. I was taken back to the very beginning when I knew you while recently rummaging through an old box. There were letters written to me by you. It was deeply emotional to read through your letters to me as a small child. I know it was so many years ago that we were close, but I still feel close to you. I can feel your spirit wherever I go. I bring it with me. Right now, even as I write this letter to you, I'm surrounded by papers, letters, easel paper, completely wall to wall. I am home in this office where I can feel your presence, your love, and our bond. Today, I write not only to you, but to many, many people. I carry Linda Duran's legacy with me in each conversation, each letter, each and every day, and with each moment. So much of who I am is you. I know it. I'll, it's a long letter, but I wrote this to, my mom, and I do feel my biological mom, who I haven't seen since I was, 5 or I feel close to her when I write letters to people. And that to me is part of my and I've written all of you letters. I know because I wrote them to you. And that's a consequence of Linda. So when you said that, man, like, yeah,
My first Jay Duran letter right here.
so that's that it's inevitable, like whatever our parents have done for us. So
Thanks for sharing that, man.
It's wildly interesting to watch somebody be gifted and talented, whether it's music, art, and they miss the lever that creates success and gives them freedom in life from the stresses of the world, and they're constantly trapped, like they're trapped in a fishbowl that they never get out of, wildly talented but never really becoming successful. And you seeing that with your dad, and then saying, I notice the genius, I recognize the genius, but I got to do something about it, because if I don't, I'm going to relive that, right? And it goes right to, that's what I think a lot of guys like Andrew do. Maybe Andrew couldn't draw a stick figure. Matter of fact, I've seen his stick figures. I didn't even know they were a stick figure till he told me it was a stick figure. But creating a company, a brand, and a culture is very similar, because it starts in the mind, right? Like you see it, you're developing it mentally before it ever hits the paper, ever hits the canvas, ever hits, the clay. And that's exactly what we're all doing with our brands, with our offers, with our products. We're sculpting, we're drawing, we're designing that in our head. So we're all really, in a sense, doing something similar from a creative standpoint. There's a book called, one of my members wrote a book called to Create. And it talks about how when we are made in the image of God, one of the attributes is we were designed to be creators as he is our creator. And it's like a gift that we have as humans. Just turning, the artist thing is such a elusive operation, turning the art into like livelihood. There's a strategy around it, but most artists are not fascinated with the business strategy, the art of the business that makes art a business, right? Which I think can be just for you. I think it can be, with the right mindset, just as entertaining as the art itself.
Yeah, I would agree with that. As far as the business becoming, like, to me, some projects that I work on, they're the same as some paintings I work on, just for example, are, to me, it feels the same as if I were to be working for, Jay mentioned Brian, he owns the pavement group. Like, I'd rather pave a parking lot. Like, it feels like work. It feels like hard labor. It feels like long hours. It feels like, I'm not passionate about the concept. It's a dollar at the end of the day. Um, it's another opportunity for me to get closer to making that art that, like, I really haven't fully expressed like the art I want to make. You know what I mean? Like, that's the goal. And the reason that I've just chose to make my business around the paintings is because I believe it fast tracks me. I could make, I could make a living running a business that isn't focused around art, but then eventually I would want to come back to the art once I am set up in a place where I don't have to charge for the art, and I would want to start sharing the art, but then not as many people or the world will see it or feel it. And that's what I want to do, is I want to connect with people in this world that, and it's why I'm sitting here on this call. Like, if I'm, being honest, like, because I picked up the paintbrush, like, that's why I'm here. Like, I've really not done anything yet in life, is what I feel like. I feel like even blessed to just be invited to these kind of calls with, men like yourselves who are actually like, um changing other people's lives. Like, I feel like I'm just starting. And so, um I can't wait to share the like real art with the world that I want to share, like the message that I have, because I know that it's good, and I know that it's filled with hope, and I know that it will make the world a better place because, like you said, like, I know that it's a gift from God, and I want to share that so that I can, you know, like, I remember what I felt like when I was at my lowest of lows, Jay. I know we've talked about, how that influences your work and what you do. And so, I'm excited to lean into that and be my authentic self here, because I feel like I haven't been. I feel like I've been running a business, and sometimes running a business, you have to do whatever you have to do inside that business to keep it alive and to keep paying your bills. And I mean, I have a wife and two kids, so, um, they rely on me. Like, this puts food on our table. And so someday I'd love to build something, and that's kind of what I'm in the midst of building right now, is a place that provides opportunity for other creatives, that tells other people's good, genuine stories along the way. That's what we're doing with all the media stuff that we've been, really building, and all along the way, not losing the momentum that I've built as an artist, as a painter, um, to be more specific. So,
What do you think the number one problem is with art? Because do you sound like you're in a state of compromise?
mhm. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if, like, this is. I just feel like anytime. Wait, I think I talked to Jay about it last time too. Like, I feel weird when there's money attached to it. because, art is expression. And
Yeah,
so,
because you keep saying the word feeling,
mhm,
and art is emotion. And I think a lot of times people interpret art, right?
yeah,
I think part of what makes you special is not even allowing them to do that. When you create it, you're creating a thing, and you need to tell them what that is, because now you've defined it. You didn't leave it open for interpretation, and you didn't leave it open to be undervalued, right? You're
mm,
able, when you put it's like a word. If I put a word on that canvas right behind you, there's a definition, right? You're creating an image which is worth 1,000 words, but there's no definition. Kind of odd.
right.
I think associating your real art with a real brand, making your brand a real art brand, which is something Andrew is phenomenal at the underpinnings of, and solving the number one problem of art, where you're leaving it open to their interpretation, and you need to tell them what it is, right? Because that's the story they're buying.
Hmm. Yeah, like, I mean, I'll just be a little bit open right now. Like the painting behind me that I referenced, this is the first video I've ever had this painting be a part of. So, um, I just recently renovated I'm in my basement of my house where my business basically started. I kind of organized the space.
Hold on. Andrew, what is that painting behind him?
And
Wow. I mean, I'm like as I get close to it, and start to look at different sections, I feel like it's like there's some kind of chaotic
It's
order.
obviously a giraffe, Andrew. Oh,
come on, dude, you don't see it?
well, but I'm being funny, but I'm being serious. And like, Vinny, what is the painting?
Well, to your point, like I feel like should I put a definition to it? Because for me, there's a real story behind it.
What is it?
But
Just
Ooh, wow. I love where this is going.
um, so I talked about this painting on a podcast with a mutual friend of me and Jay's with Benny Fisher. And
did he say Vinny?
Shout out to Big Fish. He's been on the Culture Matters podcast. Benny Fisher.
Oh, Vinny.
Yeah.
yeah, sorry, I'm a little congested this morning. Um, I did this painting like at probably 2 a.m. on a night where it was right before, it was actually the week when COVID lockdown took place. I was living in Charlotte, um, and I was just in a I was working full time in ministry. I was a youth director at a church in Charlotte, North Carolina. Um, I felt like my life was fully out of control, like in the sense that I wasn't living what I like. It's weird. You're working full time in ministry, but you don't feel like you're doing what God called you to do. Like so, it was the first time I had this real complex of faith where I'm supposed to be, doing this kind of work, but then I felt like I was not reaching the people I was supposed to reach. I was not. I just felt I don't know. I felt like out of sorts. It led me down like I became very depressed, and I say that lightly, but like the more I come to terms with like where I was, the more I'm okay with saying that I was depressed. And I remember my wife actually was struggling with some postpartum, and she wanted to drive back to Pittsburgh and spend some time uh, with her mom, and basically living with her mom and dad for a little bit, just to help us because we were struggling so bad. I was working at the church countless hours dealing with stuff like, I had a student whose mom, um, she she attempted to take her own life. And this kid's in middle school, and she was in a coma in a hospital for like 4 days. And I remember like standing there with these students that are like looking at me. I mean, these kids are like so young. There was three kids. Two were in college, or one was a senior in high school, one was in college. So the two older ones weren't my students, but the youngest one was a middle school kid. And walking into that um, hospital room, and having her laying there, and them standing around her, and having people look at you to pray for them in that moment. And I, I had such like a weight, a heaviness on me, working at this church and in ministry full time, that anything in my own life that required me to emotionally show up was really difficult for me. And
Okay.
so,
Vinny, freeze right now.
yeah.
Drew, what is he describing? What in as few words as possible, give me a title for what he's sharing, his state of mind, where he was at. Put some sort of a title on that. Let's call it a moment in time in his life. Almost reminds me of what we were talking about before. The the pressure,
Can
the
I share a
stress.
word?
What is it? Yeah, do it. While he's thinking, Vinny, did you sign that? Does that have your signature on it?
No.
Okay.
Oh,
I wanted to
Hold,
say
hold on. Is that painting done?
Think so.
So it could still be in progress.
Yeah, I feel like every painting, abstract, there's could, because it tells a story. As long as I'm still alive, like that story has room to, like, that's a moment. I painted a moment of how I felt, and that's half the story that led to that. The story that I told you. And I don't want to keep. I know there's a couple people that want to speak in here, but do you want me to pause, or do you want me to keep going with the story?
Oh, keep going.
no, and we want to listen to you. This is about you. Listening is like every guest that comes in, as they come in, like we want to listen to you. This is about you, and because it's about you, it's about like yeah. So keep talking.
What was your word?
Is it too soon to share?
No,
Like, did everybody write their word down?
I don't want to run out of time here. This is really good. What was your word?
Okay, my word was breath.
What is your word, Vinny?
Oh, hell. Yeah, I feel like my chest getting tight as I, talk about it.
Vinny, back to you.
Yeah,
Sorry, Andrew. Sorry, back to you, Andrew.
okay.
so um, Vinny, I'm just curious. Do you feel like when you were there for the family that you were showing up in the best possible way? Like, while yes, maybe you were not for your own family, which is, obviously the impact that had on you, but like, were you there for that family in the way that they needed you at that moment?
Yeah, I was just there to be whatever whatever they needed in that moment was what I was there to do. If they needed me to go get food, I was going to go get food. If they needed me to pray, I would pray. If, that's kind of what I just got a phone call. I went with the lead pastor from the church and we showed up there, and it was just a really ugly scene. She ended up not making it. And so, and I just never get those visuals out of my head. But the reason I set that story up with that for the painting was because I just wanted to paint, I wanted to paint a mental picture of what led to me being unavailable. And that was like one instance of many things. I was in Charlotte when the Charlotte University shootings were taking place, and like there was this mass panic in Charlotte at the time. With like Charlotte was a really influential city to be in 2020. Um, you know, before COVID and all that happened, and I feel like all of that led to feeling suffocated, feeling like we didn't have one another, my wife and I. And I drove her back to Pittsburgh, got in a plane, and flew back to Charlotte to try to figure out what I was going to do with my life. Like, do I just pack everything up and go back to Pittsburgh? Do I stay here and continue to serve these families that like need me? It feels like they need me. And if I just abandon them in the midst of like being a part of all those moments and then being like, got to move to Pittsburgh, now what's the most responsible thing? And so I remember having like this crisis right there where I broke out the canvas. It was the only canvas that I had, and I had been saving it for like 3, 4 years because I'm like, I'm gonna do like the craziest thing on here, but I never had an idea for what it would be. Um, Definitely didn't think it would be like that. And so then I remember laying it down, throwing all these paint on it, and just getting everything I felt inside out on it. And the next day was when uh, Rudy Gobert coughed on a microphone and the world shut down. And so I flew back to Pittsburgh and I never looked back. And now I'm in the house with my wife and 2 kids that we fought to stay together and make things work and honor our vows that we made to God. And like that painting is that pivotal moment where like God intervened for me in a way. And that's why I'm like grateful. And that's why I apologize at the beginning. And I want to also ask questions about you guys and get to know you too. Um, so I don't want to spend the whole time just talking about me. I don't know how much time we have left, but
Um, we we can go back. Actually, you can listen to our episodes. We want to know about Vinny. Vinny, you have such an amazing story. I mean, it's selfless to me is like what you have inside of you, and then you realized that, like, without self, you can't really be selfless. Like it was like,
Oh,
and that's what it feels like. It feels like, like in you is this just innate ability to want to help others and to just to be selfless, to do things in the most altruistic way, to help others. Like, you were there for that family, but you also realized that this chaos was existing in you, because you needed to support yourself, so you could be that strong foundation in the future. Like, and so next time, you are called to the mat to be there for a family that needed you, like that family did, and like you were there for that family. Like, you can not only support that family, but also, be the man, actually, who's done an amazing job in creating a business, having 2 children, being there for your wife and the children and the business and your clients and employees and everything, man.
hey, Mike, what word, like what core value comes to mind when you reflect on this conversation? What core value of Vinny, having just met him?
Oh yeah, they
And
started
but
fine.
listen, but before
Bring Bruni in. Tell her
Okay,
come up, come in, come in.
Bruni.
Hey, Bruni.
Yeah, we have a very
Rooney.
long day of just back to back every hour, all day.
Tell her to say hi. She will. Jenna would hate if I made her do that. So you don't
Oh,
have to do
No,
it.
no, she just woke up. I
I'm
want to see how
thinking,
beautiful
yeah,
she
that,
is the moment she
yes,
wakes up.
she's amazing. She's the advisor's advisor.
The thing I like about Vinny is, how old are you, Vinny?
33.
Okay. Vinny is Vinny is like if Michelangelo were walking through the yard of granite shopping for his um, block to start with. All those blocks look the same to the average person, but to an artist, they're looking at what's inside the block. And I see Vinny, like if I'm walking through the yard of humans, like Vinny is so real. He's
Mm,
and he has so much emotion and he's so in tune with it. He's still learning how to master it and leverage. It's almost like how Andrew and we manufacture adrenaline for our performance sometimes, which almost breaks the people around us. That was a prior discussion, but you have this emotion that's so overwhelmingly powerful for you. You sometimes drown in that emotion. You leverage it for your art, but it also requires you to swim in it, and sometimes it's tough for you to stay afloat in that sea of emotion that makes you great, right? So you have such a real way to express the emotion because for you it's like overwhelming to you. And that piece back there, so an artist, when they are done, one of the reasons Andrew doesn't even know what the piece is, an artist signs their art when it's done. That's what says, I'm done.
mm.
I sign it at the end. It's over. We never touch it again. And you gotta give it a title. But the art of titling art is guided conclusion. So when I said, what is the word, as simple as possible to Andrew, I wanted him to come up with like what yours was great. Yours is even better, Vinny, because you're in tune with it. Jay said breath. When I look at that, I don't see breath. Jay, it's Jay's a genius. He maybe sees things we don't see. His IQ is so high, he sees stuff we don't even see. But I agree with you, Vinny. Like that is like your brain. It was a mess. It was stressed. Your emotions were everywhere. Stress was on you. You're at your bottom, but you're having to give from a tank that's quite empty. At that stage or phase, you're going through hell, but you're trying to provide heaven to everyone else, right? And you're like, what am I even drawing from? I don't even have anything to give, but I'm over here almost with this imposter syndrome where I'm trying to make everybody else's life better, but I'm actually going through hell myself, right? Like if the title of that picture or if the title of your write this down, Jay. If the title of your real expression was hell, then you're creating guided conclusion for the interpreter that meets you really where you were at on or with the piece of art, right? Like if you got on this and you were like, Andrew, Jay, Mike, look at my picture of hell. One of the worst times of my life. Like, and then just kept moving, we would be having this conversation with you, looking at that thing going, that interpretation starts to take place because you seeded it with the absolute essence of the real emotion that created that. That's what people buy. Because you know what? That right there, such an intrinsic value that has, because what you're doing is you created an illustration of real hell for you, a real expression of hell for you, but everybody's had that moment. So now that's their moment. That reminds them of their, see, what our worst moments make the best us, right? That hell that you went through is what makes you good for others. Because when you're out of it and you're on the other side of it and they're still going through it, you're the thing that pulls them through, right? Because they can sometimes think this is never ending, I'm never making it out, but you know that's not true, right? That's how that's how yours becomes theirs, right? Because then there's that defining moment where they've all been right there. Now, Andrew's like, I know what moment that right there, he already knows. I can tell you from his notes. I know in 2024 where he dropped the ball, he was procrastinating, and it created some sort of pain. Or maybe there's even worse times in his life where he's like, dude, I went through some hell. Now that now means something to him. Because he never, it's almost like when you think of a thought and somebody goes like, hey, I got this great business idea. And you're like, okay, well, tell me about it. And they're like, how do I get it out of my mouth? Like, it's in my head. I can't get it out of my mouth. And it doesn't sound so good until I do it a million times. He never ran hell through his mind and out his fingertips onto a canvas. So your hell just became an illustration of his hell as well. That's why people buy art.
Vinny, what's your word for 2025?
I haven't decided yet. But it's gearing towards just the direction of trusting myself. So I'm trying to figure out what word like what word summarizes that is what I'm trying to figure out.
Andrew, what do you think?
Oh, I a word came to mind, but I wouldn't dare suggest it. I think it's gotta, Vinny, it's gonna come to you and you're gonna feel it and you're gonna be like, oh my goodness, that's my word. Like when you just
What is it? What is it? No, I would love for you to give me what you think the word is.
Yeah, title the painting, damn it.
I'm going to so Jay, if you can connect us and introduce us in 24 hours, I'll share the word with you. So tomorrow morning I'll share the word with you. But I mean, it's just like it to me, that's
Done.
yeah, like so yeah, but I want you to think of what your word is, rather than me imposing, because that might
Perfect.
skew what's going to come out of you organically.
Yeah, and Andrew, this was a test to see if you were an asshole. This whole podcast was engineered just for that question. If you've ever seen Inception with Leonardo DiCaprio, and okay.
Well, hopefully in 2020, in the New Year's Eve leading to 2026, I'm looking at myself as an asshole. And Mike has notes from last episode. I'm like, that asshole said that. I can't believe my episode from 5 minutes ago. Speaking of asshole, I am being an asshole to my family. I told my family I would
Oh,
be upstairs by 7:45, making breakfast for them. Vinny, it has been amazing to meet you and your story, and I can't believe how emotional this has been, and I just feel so connected to you and that artwork back there and just your story. And oh my goodness, Mike, and your ability to just have such great insight on people and conversations, on the words that we're saying, the words that we're not saying. And Jay, my goodness, I love you so much, man. Thank you for everything that you've done to me and in my world. Gentlemen, have an amazing 2025. I'm looking forward to staying in touch with you guys. Have a great day.
You guys are great. Thank you, Andrew. Pleasure, buddy.
Thanks.
Vinny,
if
or
if you're
he's
if
jumping off. Are we staying on?
no, I want to talk about Andrew kindly now that he's left, in the spirit of
Oh,
Calhoun
okay.
from
Got it.
episode 1. Um, you guys need to know, and the listeners, he was one of the first real supporters of 30 Days of Thought, Culture Matters.
He's great.
He, him and Paul Aceto, we do a show every Saturday, 30 Days of Thought, and we go through one excerpt at a time. We just recorded The Laws of Man, and his father was a pioneer, maverick, innovator in the mortgage industry as it relates to media and advertising, and just an unbelievable human being, and has a great reputation, amazing. And his family's been a huge impact on Culture Matters over the years, and their support and the work we've done. And um, him saying all that about you, like it's just an affirmation to me, like how special you guys are. And I want the audience to take away as we close this episode that the New Year's Eve Jubilee, as Mike Calhoun put it, is about people, those with us, those that are not with us. It's about people, it's about culture, it's about leadership, it's about listening and telling the truth, which is why we were fighting you, Vinny, wanting to hear your story. You're the guest, and our guests from other episodes have now become partial hosts, as you could tell, in the spirit of culture and leadership and management and growth and evolution. For the listener, if follow our journey by just, type in the Culture Matters podcast, New Year's Eve. You're going to see all the people that we've gathered and connected with on this day. This is recorded on New Year's Eve in 2024. My word for 2025 is intensity. And in the spirit of intensity, we're following Kierkegaard's thought, Soren Kierkegaard. Life can only be understood backwards, but must be lived forwards. And in that, I want to dedicate this day to our great friend, John Schwartz, who passed on. He graduated on September 16th, 2024. And we may have lost him, but we've gained another guardian watching over us. John participated in New Year's Eve last year, so you can go check out that episode 441 of the Culture Matters podcast. Vinny, in closing, how can people connect with you on Instagram or to find out about One Team Media,
Yep.
Athletic Aesthetic, who you are as a person, work with you, figure out how to get you in their life? Just call to action on that.
So I have my personal Instagram is just vinnie.candelore. That's just I post my life there, so that's not any of my business accounts. If you'd like information on the media stuff at One Team Media on social media, all of our links are on there on the accounts online, whatever platform you're on, and emails are attached onto there as well. And then with the art, it's at VC2, the number 2 art. I got some podcasts and things, but if you go to my page, Vinnie.Candelore, it'll link you to wherever you want to go from there.
If you're listening to this, follow Mike Drop Calhoun. You have no idea what you're missing out if you don't listen to episode 552 on the Culture Matters podcast. Take it from there. If you have any clue, you want to be in that room. Thank you for listening to the Culture Matters podcast. Please share this with a friend that you care about. And if you don't care. And we will see you next time on the Culture Matters podcast.